Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bracket Builders Podcast. I am your host, JD, and today I am joined by one special guest. Everyone, this is Goblin Ringleader. He's one of our local Magic players from the scene that we play in. Jack, how about you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Jack. I run the Goblin Ringleader channel. I play primarily goblins, actually exclusively goblins in every format, all the way from vintage to pauper, and I just have a great time playing janky things. And with Lorwyn coming out, it's finally getting some love.
Absolutely. What a great time to be a fan of goblins. You went from a pretty decent deck in standard and a deck that didn't get much love for a while in formats like modern and such to getting a nice injection of modern designs. So it's going to be great to talk to you about the Goblins deck as it's going to be here with Lorwyn. At time of recording, Lorwyn's cards have all been spoiled, but we have not seen how they are in practice yet. So if we miss anything, don't kill us in the comments. We'll talk about it in another podcast eventually. But Jack, before we get into the full interview, anything fun happened to you this week?
No, I've kind of just been chilling. We definitely had fun last weekend. I top aided an RCQ playing standard goblins. I was playing
Oh yeah.
Boros with Krenko and War Chief's call or Warrior's call. It was kind of crazy. When you have an impact tremors in play and you tap your Krenko, usually that's an EDH thing, but we do it in standard and it beat up on the Arborite deck all weekend. It was great.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's been a pretty chill week here as well. Lorwyn spoiler season kind of came and went, and I thought we had stuff ready for it, and I was wrong. So it just kind of blew right past us. Uh, but yeah, so that's fantastic. So, before we get into the specific goblin stuff, what got you into Magic? Like, where'd you start playing?
Yeah, so my origin story is a little while ago. I started in M13, core set 2013 was my first ever set. I remember buying a box for Christmas, I think. Christmas or my birthday, and I opened a Thundermaw Hellkite, which was like kind of like what got me hooked was, I opened the box, I got a bunch of really cool cards, I built a bad deck, I lost a lot, but it was a lot of fun, and I've been hooked ever since. Been playing relatively competitively since like Theros era. I tried to play, standard for a little while. I built a bunch of bad brews, and that's just how it is when you start. You play the cards that you love, and it doesn't matter if you win or if you lose, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing. That's what matters, and it allowed me to stick with it through the good times and the bad. And eventually I figured out, from brew to brew that I enjoyed playing aggressive creature decks. And when I found goblins, I kind of just fell in love, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, 100%. I really agree with you on the whole like do what brings you joy because this is a game ultimately for fun, and I understand that some of our commander focused audience doesn't hasn't really played the more competitive side of things, and they view it as more as a place where you can't have that kind of fun and self expression that you can in Commander. That's part of the reason why what you do is so important. I think for just like this being able to perform at a level that's pretty good for a local tier uh, while still having your fun and doing what brings you joy as opposed to chasing the meta trends. So it's phenomenal. So speaking of things that bring you joy, you said you learned you like to play aggressive strategies, but what led you from that jump to I'm just gonna do the goblins thing?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of really bad brews for a very long time. And when you start playing Magic, you don't really know what you're doing. Most people put cards together and you make a deck, but you don't really have enough like information on how to like, make it work in the specific meta that you're playing, the format that you're playing. And one of the issues that I kept running into with brews was I would create this really cool idea and then I'd try to like apply it to whatever format I was playing, and it really would feel like I was hitting a wall. I'd play up against all these tuned meta decks, and it definitely became difficult to, get through the zero win. You every week you go with your brew. Sometimes you don't get a single win like in a game. Sometimes you don't get a single match win. And so trying to take a brew and a really strong idea and apply it to a format specifically is very exhausting, especially if you're jumping from idea to idea, color to color, because you have to change your sideboard, you have to change the interaction that you play in your main deck. Eventually, I just love deck building and brewing. And eventually, I figured out that if I just choose something that I enjoy, and Goblins has always been a deck that I've enjoyed, I can tune my not only my sideboard, but I can tune how I play to beat a certain meta. Like usually, I'll try to build the Goblins deck to beat the tier one or tier two decks, and then I'll like hone in on one deck that I'm okay with losing to. So like for example, when I first started playing Goblins, like there was a lot of like Lingering Souls, Young Pyromancer decks, right? And so I found that if I'm willing to lose to that deck, I can build my deck in such a way where I'm going to be aggressive enough to beat the blue eye control players, to beat the, you know, affinity players. Like you can play we didn't have Meltdown back then. We had to play Shattering Spree, and I remember that was one of the more expensive cards that I bought when I was younger. Because I was like, ooh, if I can just shatter like three or four of their things, I can shatter their Arcbound Ravager, I can shatter their creatures that they put the counters on, then that works. And so one of the things that I like about just choosing to play exclusively Goblins was it gave me not only a depth of knowledge, but it also gave me a stipulation. You're talking about EDH. And a lot of people who play EDH will understand this. Eventually, when you build enough decks, you run into a problem where you're like, okay, so where's the fun? The deck building is fun, but where's the fun in the playing? Like, I can build this super cool deck, but how am I going to apply this to my pod? And how am I going to enjoy what I'm doing? If you decide to give yourself a challenge, a stipulation, I decided to just play goblins in every format. And what that allowed me to do is I didn't have to worry about building like the coolest brew for the week. I didn't have to worry about surprising everybody. What I had to worry about is trying to tune my quote unquote bad deck to be as good as possible in the face of the meta. And it allowed me to not only have transferable skills, like I go to standard and I have all the experience of playing modern goblins. I go to vintage and I have all the experience from playing legacy goblins. And the formats are not one to one, but the fundamentals are the same, right? When do you attack? When do you hold back? When do you keep cards in your hand to play around a sweeper? Like all of these principles that you learn in one format, they're applied in all these other formats because the deck is relatively the same. Even if the creatures trait change, you're playing aggressive threats, you're trying to mitigate your opponent's card advantage. You know, the easiest way to lose when you're playing an aggressive creature deck is to play into a sweeper. So I learned very early, you just play a 2/2. Goblin Ringleader is my favorite card. That's why it's the name of the channel. I beat so many blue eye control players by just playing a one drop, waiting until they killed it, playing another creature, waiting until they killed it, play a ringleader. It has haste, attack, and sit back with my cards and wait for them to have to answer it. And it's those little like skills that you learn from all these different formats, all these different games over the years that it really has like changed the way that I see the game. It's gone from, I want to do the coolest thing. And I definitely I wanted to do big, flashy things when I was
Hmm.
younger. Now I'm at the point where I just want to be consistent. I want to have a curve. And as long as I can do the same thing pretty much every single game, my opponent's deck is going to have a higher variance rate than I will. And I'll be able to have on average a better result than they will if I can just make sure that even though my cards individually are less powerful, I play them better. And that's the reason that I really enjoy playing goblins in all these different formats is because I get to learn what's right, what's wrong, and how to play to my outs.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I want to circle back to some of the stuff you said earlier. You mentioned how one of the big things you did to make sure you could keep playing goblins was you would you would look at the meta just based on what was currently viable, and then pick something to beat. Was there ever a time where you were the deck to beat? Have you ever played goblins when they were at the top? Has that ever been a time for you so far?
So there was a time in Legacy when Goblins was tier zero. It was by far the best deck, and that was when we had Sticker Goblin,
Yes,
the
mind
Goblin.
goblin.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to say it. But it was really powerful. You had the ability to have fast mana, Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, and then you could turn one your Mind Goblin. You could chain them together, and then this allowed you to get a turn one Muxus into play. If you had a haste enabler, then you were able to just literally attack. Your opponent hasn't played anything, even a land yet, and you could potentially win turn one on the play. And so that version of Legacy was the strongest that Goblins has probably ever been, and probably, I'll be honest, ever will be. However, I was in college at the time. I wasn't able to afford to go to these big events. I still was going to the energies when I was back in town. However, I didn't, by the time I actually bought my Mind Goblins, the card had literally, but they came in the mail the day that the card was banned.
Oh.
Um, so I was just barely out of that time frame. However,
Mhm.
I think that, probably the best that Goblins has ever been in my mind is modern before MH3, I believe. Maybe before around right before MH3 era,
Mhm.
when the format was kind like Fury had just been banned.
Mhm.
There was a period where I wasn't able to play like the deck that I wanted to play. I was playing modern, but I had to pivot a little bit. So I wasn't really playing all in goblins. I was playing like goblin like Panza. I was playing
Mhm.
Trinisphere, I was playing Karn,
Mhm.
and I was just playing like the Goblin combo in that deck, and that was a
Mhm.
lot of fun. But like besides the like it being tier zero in Legacy, I think that the deck's been struggling for a long time.
Mhm.
And even though we're able to sneak out a couple wins. We're able to do things that are a little bit unexpected. And I will say that's the biggest draw to the deck if you're somebody on the outside is you can look at the board state a lot of times and underestimate how fast we can accelerate with the deck because of we have haste enablers, because we have cards like Krenko. We can go from, oh, I'm behind, I'm kind of losing, you're attacking me, to, oh, you died on the crackback. I don't know what happened. One of my favorite things to say, and you know this, is nothing bad is going to happen. Nothing bad's going to happen.
Yeah, nothing
I
bad.
love that.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay, yeah, because as far as I had remembered, I didn't think goblins had ever been like tier zero. And I forgot about that legacy sticker goblin period of time. I was following legacy pretty closely around then because that's when I was first learning about the format. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, very fun time for goblins. So, is there a format you wish goblins could pop off harder in? I know, you play standard and modern and legacy and all that. Is there a place you wish it was better?
Honestly, I think it would probably be modern. And it's not that the deck isn't strong, it's that modern has always been the format of removal.
Hmm.
Modern is the format, if you ask anybody who plays a lot of Magic, it's the format that has the most removal, it has the highest caliber interaction.
Hmm.
Legacy and Vintage have better interaction, but the decks that are doing unfair things do it faster. They go bigger. And so the interaction isn't as powerful. In Modern, the threats, the things that you're doing, they're powerful, but they're on par with the interaction. So it really doesn't feel like it's that crazy or unbeatable. I would
Hmm.
say if there's one format that I wish the Goblins was a little bit better in, it's in Modern, because I think it's the hardest format for the deck to be successful in. And that's saying something, because we have a turn three infinite combo that's uncounterable with a Cavern. So
Hmm.
maybe I'm just
Yeah.
asking for too much.
Maybe, maybe. Well, I mean, modern has been pretty heavily defined by Modern Horizons cards since the very first Modern Horizons release, and you've gotten a few crumbs in these sets for goblins here and there. But since Modern Horizons 3, I've definitely noticed that there wasn't enough goblin support in that compared to the stuff that came for energy and other stuff. So that takes us to our current situation here. Standard Goblins has been a solid like tier two deck since Aether Drift. It had a brief period of time. Did we ever get to play the Dominaria United Goblin Lord with the Aether Drift Goblins or no? We did.
We did. We did for a
Yeah,
very, very brief time. I think the next set it rotated out.
yeah. It was like three months maybe. Uh, So that was the only other like non Aether Drift Goblin card that mattered, and Foundations too. But Foundations Aether Drift kind of 1-2 punch there, for the goblins.
Mhm.
But now we have another set full of goblins with Lorwyn Eclipsed, and I went with you and we grabbed a couple of cards that we want to talk about for the application in standard and some of the other formats too.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Right off the bat, this is a card that I just want to go off on. Uh,
Please go
so
ahead.
when when Spider Punk was first spoiled, nothing about that card matters except for the fact that it says that your spells can't be creature spells can't be countered,
Hmm.
or spider spells can't be countered.
I believe
But
yes, it was
hexing
that.
hexing sculpture is infinitely better because not only can it not be countered, but it also says all spells you cast can't be countered. A big issue that we have with our deck is that if our opponent just holds up a counter spell the entire game, there's a lot of pieces that are not individually powerful, but we have synergy cards that bring our weaker goblins together into and elevates them above what they would normally be. So like we have Lords, we have Krenko, we have the Haste Enabler and Howl Squad Heavy. And so if our opponent's smart enough to hold up interaction and pick apart the synergy pieces, we're left with a lot of chaff. And Cavern has always traditionally been very powerful in the sense that it allows us to get our synergy pieces down through, I would say, one third of removal.
Hmm.
I would
Hmm.
say that the three biggest kinds of interaction that your opponent can have are discard,
Hmm.
straight up removal spells, and counter spells.
Hmm.
And so if you take away counter spells and you're able to get your threats down fast enough, the only thing you have to worry about is interaction, either targeted removal or
Hmm.
board wipes.
Yep.
And Hexing Squelcher just allows us to make sure that not only do we get our goblins down, but we can get our war leaders calls, we can get our non-creature spells down, and that's huge. So it's a 2 mana 2/2. This can't be countered, which again, amazing. Spells you control can't be countered, amazing. If your opponent's at 3 life and you have your lightning strike, if for example Sheltered by Ghost is taking your Krenko and or your haste enabler and you have a lightning strike, the ward 2 doesn't have to be paid. If you strike the creature, the ward trigger goes in the stack, attempts to counter your lightning strike, but then it will fizzle because it cannot be countered.
Hmm.
And you'll be able to get your creature that was taken by a Shelter by Ghost back, which is a card that's usually been really good against us.
Yes.
And if it stopped there, this card would be amazing. But
Hmm.
it also has Ward Pay 2 life. So if your opponent does have the targeted interaction, which is the other half of what they could do against this card,
Hmm.
they'll immediately get shocked, which makes it feel like this card kind of has pseudo haste.
Hmm.
And all your other creatures also have Ward Pay 2 life.
Hmm.
And it could stop there, but
Hmm.
it's not legendary. One of the things that I thought when I saw this card the first time was that it was a legend.
Hmm.
And it's insane because it's not legendary. You can use cards to copy this. There's that red and double X sorcery that makes X copies of a creature. There's the
Uh-huh.
new blue source. There's the new blue instant that allows you to make all of your non-land permanents copies of a creature.
Yep.
So there's so many cool things you can do with this card because it's not a legend. And even just baseline, you can cast a second one. And then
Yeah.
if they want to kill one, they have to pay 4 life. Eh, this card's insane. Vintage playable. That's how good this card is. We're playing it all the way back from standard to vintage.
Yeah, this card is absolutely phenomenal. We talked about this in here from Bracket Builders during our talk about the cards from the set, and ultimately in Commander, where most people are looking for evaluation. I think this card is perfectly like normal in most games, but if you're at like a combo heavy like higher bracket table, this card is ridiculous. An uncounterable spell that turns off all counter spells is so good, and it's got relevant creature types, and it's got a little bit of ward pay life, which is not as relevant in Commander, but in something that like 1v1, being able to stack that ward is so good. And just to circle back to an earlier point, I went and looked at what Spider Punk does. Spider Punk turns off ability, and it says that spells and abilities can't be countered just blanketly. So you couldn't, your ward would be turned off if this card had the same thing as Spider Punk. So it is just generally better. And your trick with Shelter by Ghost wouldn't work either. Just it's this card is so much better in every way, and it's got much more relevant creature types. It's a goblin. Sorcerer is a new one, but they went back and changed some other stuff with Sorcerer. But yeah, no, this is phenomenal. I expect to see this one everywhere.
And it's
It's
I think Spider Punk also was a 2/1. So this doesn't die to fire magic or
Yeah.
Iroh's demonstration,
Hmm.
which is a huge point because one of the only reasons that I'm not playing eight, 6 or 8 one-drop creatures is because of the fact that Iroh's demonstration is a 4 of in the most played deck, and
Hmm.
the Ouroboros deck is the biggest deck right now. So
Hmm.
everybody who can is playing fire magic in their sideboard.
Yep.
So the fact that it does die to a kicked fire magic, but that's not our issue.
Right.
Our issue is when we go one drop into Seer Slicer, and then they at our end step are able to use their one drop, one mana in order to wipe our entire board and then
Yeah.
untap, and the tempo is completely gone. This
Yeah.
card doesn't fall to that,
Yep.
and so it's insane.
Yeah. It's just such an all-around amazing card. If goblins is a thing in current standard, this would be a huge part of it, I think.
1000%.
Next up, we have a bit of a weird one, which makes sense with the name. This is the Champion of the Weird. So 3 and a black for 5/5 Goblin Berserker. It's got a play on the champion mechanic. So you behold a goblin, either from your hand or in play, and then whichever one you choose goes to exile. Uh, and then when this leaves the battlefield, you get that card back. But it has the activated ability of pay 1 life, blight 2, so you put two -1/+1 counters on a creature you control, and then your opponent has to do the same thing. So where are you thinking about playing this one?
So I think that first off, this is a card that doesn't read super powerful until you think about, again, the synergy that it has with other goblins. So the biggest thing that I think this card could do is it could play incredibly well with your Krenko. If you play this on turn 4 or 5, and then you have a Krenko activated the following turn, or you have a Sear Slicer that's making an extra body every single turn, that's fodder that you can throw away. Another thing is you have so many mobile, like Stadium Headliner makes mobilized tokens. Currently, we play Voice of Victory. We will stop playing Voice of Victory because of the fact that the only reason we played it was to turn off our opponent's counterspells, which the Squelcher does.
Hmm.
But like you can use any incidental 1/1 that you have and just kill it to kill one of your opponent's creatures. And the coolest thing about this card is if you are losing life to it over and over again, like let's say you have an opponent who has a Llanowar Elves, a Gene Pollinator, and a Badger Mole Cub. You can play this card by itself. You can put two -1/-1 counters on it, pay a life, kill one of their creatures. Then you do it again. Then
Hmm.
you do it again.
Hmm.
Then you do it again.
Hmm.
This creature dies. You've killed 3 of their creatures.
Yep.
And again, if you have a Krenko or another way to make tokens, you don't have to even shrink this from being a 5/5.
Yeah.
You can use all of your extra fodder to wipe your opponent's board. And the coolest, I think another really cool thing about this is that you get to use a useless one drop in your hand. A lot of times we'll curve out 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, and then double two drop on 4. And we'll be stuck with an extra one drop in our hand, a little 1/1 creature that really doesn't impact the board super well. It doesn't really have any like play in the late game. This gives you an ability to say, okay, well, this one drop now serves a purpose. It allows me to get rid of this one. It allows me to get rid of a card in my hand that doesn't matter in order to get my overcosted or undercosted body down. And I have the option then to use it immediately as a one-sided board wipe because you lose the champion of the weird and you kill their board. Or you just say, hey, I have a house squad heavy. I can give this card haste, and a 4 mana 5/5 with haste, that's pretty decent by itself. Not to mention Howl Squad makes a token, and if they don't chump block it, then the second main, you can just sack it to kill one of their creatures. I think that this card is super undervalued right now. And
Hmm.
yes, it's gonna need some setup. You're gonna need to have other tokens in order to use it. But like I think about this against the Ouroboros deck, right? If you make it the Ouroboros have no power, then they never put any counters on their creatures. The Ouroboros can never grow big enough because it keeps adding 0 to itself. And the 1/1 counters would cancel out the -1/-1 counters, but that's only if they already were able to get it like bigger.
Hmm.
And the one counter that it puts on itself immediately on combat is less than the two that it puts on it by
Yeah.
with its ability.
Hmm.
So I think that this card is insane. And also, it plays really well into a card that's almost like Pashlik Mons. The other card that I was talking to you about that works really well with this. Let's say you have a board, you tap your Krenko, you make 5 guys. Then the following turn, you play the champion of the weird. You tap your Krenko again. You make 5, 6. You make plus the Krenko. You make 7 guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then you can stack all of them to wipe your opponent's board.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna lose like 7 life, but with Boggart Mischief, not only is it a basically a death trigger ping, but it's a blood artist effect. So you're gaining that life back, meaning that you can almost not infinitely, but you can kill a lot of your opponent's creatures with very little downside.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this card?
Yeah, so I really like Bogart Mischief, because it is a kindred enchantment. It's a goblin, so if you do have your caverns and stuff, you can play this in a higher color goblin deck. We now have what is it, 12 lands that you can play that are typal focused. Where you choose your type and it makes the mana of any color for that type. With the new one for the Lorwyn types, which includes, of course, Goblin. Uh, Blighting one is not that big of a downside for this Goblins deck, because, like you've said, there's a ton of material already in the current build, even ignoring the fact that you're about to get all this new stuff to play with. Uh, and then if you do that Blight one, you get two bodies, which you can then use to feel into the 4 drop. You could even you could behold this enchantment to get that into play. Like, there's just so many different textures that this card adds to the deck. I think is absolutely worth talking about. But just to circle back real quick to the Champion of the Weird, uh, I agree with you that I didn't even realize that you can put the blight counters on itself immediately 3 times, like you said there, because then if you look at this card as just 4 mana, pay 3 life, your opponent sacks 3 creatures. That's very very good in standard. And then you don't even lose the card you beheld because you get it back when this goes away. So like, there's no huge downsides to this, and the biggest downside to all of these behold creatures is if they get countered, you don't get your card back that you used to behold it. But Goblins specifically has all this anti-counter magic protection in it now that Champion of the Weird is almost never getting countered compared to the other places. Like, the elves probably could run straight into counter magic and stuff like that. So overall, yeah, this is definitely a good pick. I very much undervalued this one, and it's gonna murder me.
And it's a 5/5, which is just
Yeah, it's
insane.
huge. Speaking of things that people have been undervaluing, uh, this is the Mud Button Curse Tosser. You want to tell people what this one does, Jack?
Yeah, so this is a 1 mana 2/1 Goblin Warlock. Additional cost to cast. You either behold a goblin or pay 2 generic. It can't block, but that's not what matters. We're being aggressive all day. Also, when it dies, you destroy a creature an opponent controls with power 2 or less. Now, let me tell you why this matters. Because this card is going straight into modern, and it might even see some legacy play because of the fact that this kills Tameo in legacy. There's so many different things that this kills in all formats. You can kill a Guide of Souls. You can kill a Tameo in Legacy. You can, in Standard, kill an Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Like, they go to
Even after the
combat.
trigger, they can get the trigger still. It goes to 2 power, and then you can kill it with your 1 drop. That is so good.
And like, if we go back to the 3 mana enchantment, right? You just go Mud Button Curse Tosser, play your enchantment, blight this, it dies, you kill the Ouroboros, you get 2 goblins, you drain gain, like
Mm-hmm.
you're up so much
Yeah.
value.
And you do it on
It's
turn 3,
insane.
which is the turn you need to be able to kill the Ouroboros. No
Yeah.
matter play, draw, no matter what. It's an aggressive creature that if they kill it, you cut down something. Is basically how I've been telling people how this card works. And they were like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. This is so good." You don't get your card back that you beheld with this one, like unlike the other
Yep.
ones. But you also don't get rid of the card. You're just showing it off. You're just like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I have
Yep.
this goblin in my hand," and you show it to them, and now you get to play this for 1 mana. All of
Yeah.
these like uncommon behold creatures, except for the elf one, are really good. I think the goblins one is best. This is part of why I think goblins going to be so good, because Stadium Headliner was already such a good 1 drop, as both a good attacker with evasion and removal, and now we have a second good attacker with removal attached to it. That is just going to take this deck and go right back to the top. So I'm very hopeful about this one. I didn't even think about this thing killing Tameo.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card literally, and the cool thing is the most of the Lorwyn card, like we go, like Champion of the Weird shrinks your opponent's creatures. Like even if it doesn't straight up kill them, there's so many situations where, and also we're not even talking about how good this card is in limited, right? Like
Yeah.
there's going to be so many situations where you're able to trade off your aggressive, so they have to block, and it usually trades up because it's a 2/1. You'll
Hmm.
trade with a 2 drop, sometimes even a 3 drop, and then you get to shoot another creature. And where I think this card really shines is in Modern, where you get to go turn one Curse Tosser, turn two Birthing Ritual. You get to
Hmm.
sack your Curse Tosser, immediately kill one of their creatures. And we've been struggling against Boros Energy for a very long time in Modern. This might be the card that allows us to get around that corner and just start crushing them.
Yeah, it's a good one drop that can attack into the Ocelot Pride because if they block, they lose their Ocelot Pride still. Uh, it also favorably trades with every other one of their cheap creatures. If they do that Ajani thing where they try and block the one thing, you can then shoot the real Ajani before it flips. It just lots of very good things going on with this card. Uh, yeah, this is a very important card for goblins.
Nasty.
Speaking of
Speaking of
important cards,
nasty,
yeah. Ah,
so this is a really good example of what I think is going to happen in the standard deck. I think we're going to go. The curve is probably going to be Curse Tosser on one, like even without Stadium Headliner, right? Even without Bastronaut, which both are amazing one drops. If we go Curse Tosser on one, Curse Crafter on two, and then we go turn three, by the 3 mana. I'm forgetting the
the
name. The
enchantment,
three
I
mana
can't remember
Kindred
either.
enchantment we were just
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah,
Then you get to blight your curse tosser, murder a thing, drain, gain, and then drain and then ping. Like
yeah.
it's actually insane how much value this deck is going to make. And again, if we think about the 4 drop, this is another payoff for killing our own creatures. This again works incredibly well with Krenko and not a legend. So we can stack these. We can have
Hmm.
multiple of these in
Yeah.
play. It's an undercosted threat with a relevant keyword, and it's, I would say, better than Impact Tremors because Impact Tremors isn't that great as a top deck. But against pretty much any deck as a top deck, this is amazing because we play it, we immediately can trade with a creature like Ouroboros, like anything that we really need to answer as long as it doesn't fly.
Hmm.
And when our opponent finally does board wipe, because the one way you can beat our deck right now is you have to board wipe. Like Day of Judgment, I think it's Day of Judgment, it's in
Hmm.
standard. You have to Wrath. If you're not able to Wrath, you do lose the game
Hmm.
because Krenko, Howl Squad, Seer Slicer, they all make tokens. And what we've been missing, the reason I've been playing Boros is for an Impact Tremors on War Leader's Call. And so now we have the ability to have a better version of uh, wrath mitigation. If our opponent wraths, even if we have 4 goblins, uh, they take 3. That's a free lightning strike. If we tap Krenko once with a Howl Squad, usually we're making 4 or 5 extra goblins. And then we just get to a point where our opponent literally can't cast the wrath in their hand because it means the game ends.
Yeah.
Super excited about this card, and I think that it's really playable in Standard, Pioneer, and it might even see some play in our modern deck because it's a 2 mana Pashalik Mons. It doesn't let you ping down creatures or planeswalkers, but usually that's not what you're using it for. Usually you're just trying to kill them.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize this is a 2 mana 2/3 with 3 lines of text. Like they want
Insane.
goblins to be a real deck. And if you look at Lorwyn, the set itself, there are 16 legends in the set, which sounds like a high number, but if you look at any of the Magic sets that came out in the last few years, this is an absurdly low number of legends. And it's because they knew that if they wanted to make these decks good in standard, they needed to stop doing the uncommon is a legend thing, which has caused so a lot of these really important cards to get stuck with the legend rule. Uh, and you can see it with the one drop we just talked about, with the Curse Crafter here. These are cards that in another set would have been legendaries. But because you can stack these things, it takes these stat buffs and such and makes them go through the roof. And we haven't even talked about the best Goblin card yet.
Yeah, it's actually insane.
Yeah, this is the best Goblins
I
card.
I think that like the two drop is amazing in all these different formats, but especially for standard, a three mana Thoughtseize is gonna be ridiculous. And it's not traditionally an actual Thoughtseize. However, against our deck, we do not care about what creatures you play. We
Mm-hmm.
only care about what interaction you have.
Yeah.
Again, Goblins throws a bunch of material on the board, and we just try to have a few key synergy pieces, a Krenko, a Lord, like a Dropkick Bomber, a Howl Squad Heavy to give the things haste, all of these cards that allow our individually weak 1/1s to kind of get souped up and then just crash over the top. And Taster of Wares takes away our opponent's only real way of stopping us, which, as I was saying, is a Wrath.
Mm-hmm.
3 mana for a 2/3. It's a Goblin Warlock. When
Mm-hmm.
this enters, target opponent reveals X cards from their hand, where X is the number of goblins you control. It'll be in more than the cards in their hand, usually.
Yeah.
You choose one of those cards. That player exiles it. If an instant or sorcery card is exiled this way, you may cast it for as long as you control this creature, and mana of any type may be spent to cast that spell. Basically, how this is going to play out is we're going to play this. Our opponent's going to have to choose a card in their hand. They can choose to reveal a land. They exile it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not conditional, it's not a duress. It's
Yeah.
only conditional on the number of goblins that you have. And if they have
Mm-hmm.
one card in hand, if they have three cards in hand, usually, especially in standard where we go one drop into two drop Seer Slicer, that makes a guy, and then into three drop Howl
Mm-hmm.
Squad that makes a guy. By the time that we're casting this on turn four, or even if we're just casting this on turn three, we're playing
Mm-hmm.
it with four goblins in play. Our opponent's going to show us most of their hand. And if they show us anything worth taking, we take it. And
Mm-hmm.
with the added upside of we can have their best removal, we can take their consult the star charts, we can take their stock ups, we can take their wrath and then just never cast it. I
Mm-hmm.
think this card is actually insane, and the rate is phenomenal. Usually, when you have like a creature that is stapled to some discard, the body is not important. It's like a 1/1 or like a 2/2. This is a 3/2, which is phenomenal. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're aggressively costed because we're going to be an aggressive deck, and we just take the stuff out of their hand that we want.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that's phenomenal about this card is that we have the ability to recur cards in goblins. We have
Yep.
wart. We have so many different ways to pick goblins up out of our graveyard. And if we cast this one or two or three times, let's say we draw three different ones, or let's say
Mm-hmm.
we just recur the same one over and over again, we have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to strip our opponent's hand completely. And if
Mm-hmm.
you they don't have any cards in their hand, the chance of them recovering from our board, even if it's small, it's very low.
And another important point for this kind of thing, we have a card like this in standard, and it's Severance Priest. And if you compare that card to this one, it feels like that card came out 5 years ago. Uh,
Yeah.
like so most of these effects that are a creature that comes in and takes your card, they get the card back when the creature leaves, like Tide Hollow Sculler or Deep Cavern Bat, or they get something in exchange for their card. They get nothing for this. Their card is gone, and it's not discarded, so they can't like, oh well, I'm going to show you my Bringer of the Last Gifts. Put it in the graveyard for me. No, you do. They show you something, it's gone forever. It's in exile, and if it's an instant or sorcery, you get it. That's ridiculous. And that clause where you get to cast it isn't tied to this thing being alive. So if you take their if you only have like four goblins and you take their consult the star charts or whatever, and then they still manage to wrath you, you now have their draw spell to play like you're their deck, and you can use any of your colors of mana to cast it. This does so many different important things. But imagine Jack, live with me in this Christmas land, where you're up against Jeskai Blink in Modern, and you put this into play, and you take their Ephemerate. You take their Ephemerate. What happens to the rest of their hand, Jack? It's gone.
Oh, it's gone.
Because you just blink
And
this
that's the
thing.
cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cool thing about this is this reminds me so much. While you're talking, I was thinking, Gonti, Lord of Luxury, used to
Mm-hmm.
be a standard staple
Mm-hmm.
back in Aether Drift, or Aether Revolt,
Yeah.
Kaladesh era. The card was a 4 mana 2/3. You looked at the top four of your opponent's library and you took a card, exiled it face down. You can cast it forever with mana of any color. That card was a standard staple. This is a three drop that's not a legend. So again, you can have multiple of these in play, and it does basically a better thing because four cards off your opponent's top of their library, you don't know if those are going to be four lands. You don't know if those are going to be four spells. But your opponent's hand is almost always going to have good cards in it
Yeah.
because either they're sculpting their draws or they're sandbagging their threats till after their wrath. Like I imagine we take there's so that's the cool thing. When you said Jeskai, my brain immediately went to Jeskai Revelation.
Oh
I take
yeah.
their Jeskai Revelation and they're just like, I got you, bro. We're grinding. We're grinding now.
Yeah. You wanna go
So
long?
there's so
Sure.
many
I'll
cool things you
pressure
can
just
do
get
with this deck.
Revelation. I fought with somebody
Yeah.
in Standard a couple days ago that was doing like Cruel Claws heist in their main deck to beat the Jeskai control deck, and I got my Revelation taken twice, and I was like, okay, I guess I lose. But yeah, no,
It's
this just
crazy.
yeah, this card's so good.
I love it.
Hmm. All right, and the last one we're going to be talking about from Lorwyn Eclipsed here is Grub. This is a bit of a reader, so I'll handle this one for us. So, Grub Storied Matriarch is 2 and a black for a 2/1 Goblin Warlock. It has Menace. Whenever this creature enters or transforms, return up to one target Goblin card from your graveyard to your hand. Beginning of your reversed main phase, you may pay red if you do transform her. Her backside is still a 2/1. She is a Goblin Warrior with Menace still. When she attacks, you may Blight 1. If you do, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of the Blighted creature, except it has at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this token, and just like the other ones like this, for main phase, you pay a black and flipper back over. So, do
Okay,
you think
so
we're putting this one in?
I think this is a one or a two of, and
Mm-hmm.
this is definitely a card that's played more of in the sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
A great example of a mid-range threat. It does die to fire magic, but again, this is a card that I think they can't overpower because being able to give us so of course this reminds me so much of Wart Boggart Auntie, which is a 4 mana 3/3 with fear, and at the beginning of your upkeep you can pick up a goblin card out of your graveyard. That card's very powerful because let's say you have a Muxus in Legacy. You can sack it to your Skirk Prospector, go to your upkeep, pick up your Muxus, recast it.
Mm-hmm.
In Modern, you can pick up your Snoop every single turn and say, okay, I'm going to run you out of removal. You either have to kill my Snoop or the Wart. There's a lot of similarities, but I think this card somehow is better. It's 3 mana for a 2/1. The stats are the worst on this card. It has
Mm-hmm.
Menace, which is a relevant keyword. We've seen Menace basically become unblockable over the years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of powerful decks in Standard that don't play a lot of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, the Ouroboros deck and the Prowess deck, the Is It Lessons deck,
Mm-hmm.
are like the most creature go wide decks that are in Standard right now. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't think that there's a lot of other decks that put a lot of different bodies in play. And
Mm-hmm.
if they do, they really don't want to be blocking this.
Mm-hmm.
Menace is just very tricky in a combat scenario. You have to have a lot of different blockers, and usually the creature with Menace is not what you want to be blocking, so it
Right.
just ends up being unblockable by like default. When this enters or transforms into it, you pick up a goblin card out of your graveyard. And as we've seen today, there's a lot of very powerful goblin cards coming out in this set. And this can let us pick up our Krenko. This can let us pick up our Howl Squad Heavy. This can let us pick up our Stadium Headliner that we immediately play and then kill their best creature. We can pick up the Taster of Wares, where we immediately basically better thoughts seize them. There's a lot of really cool things that the front side of this does. And even if it enters and they immediately kill it, what I think is really interesting is if this enters and then in response to the trigger, they just get gung ho and they kill it, you can pick up the grub again with its own trigger because the trigger's still on the stack. The goblin's in the graveyard. No?
No, so it's up to one target goblin. So you choose that when it enters. So it enters and then you do
Target on
target
ETB.
thing and then they shoot and kill it. But the part
Good
of this
point.
card
Good
that I
point.
am most excited for, I definitely agree with you. I think at most it'd be a two of. Uh, this backside, I feel like of all of the
Crazy.
flip legends, this backside is the one that just says you win the game on it. The other
Yeah.
ones feel like you want to be going back and forth and kind of hitting value. It feels like they made Grub. It feels like this card might have been like a 3/2 at some point in testing, and they went, no, we gotta shrink this thing because
I
uh,
agree.
this it feels like it's a little understated. But this ability in the back is very strong. It's you get to copy a goblin, you blight one onto it. If that kills it, you still make the token. Uh but being able to copy any of your powerful ETBs, just getting a second Blood Artist effect into play, like your 2/3 Blood Artist that you can very easily blight onto and keep it alive, uh, and just keep making more bodies like this. I know they die at the end step, but that's fine. You want them to be sacrificed because it will trigger all of your Blood Artists and other stuff. But again, Taster of Wares. You get that thing in play, you flip this grub and attack once, and you take another card out of their hand. Like,
Yeah.
woof. Yeah, it's
And,
very
and
good.
another thing, yes, the first thing that I was saying, scrap that.
Sure.
Gravedigger on an ETB that
Mm-hmm.
targets a goblin, it's
Yeah.
gonna be fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna be great, it's gonna be fine. If we get to flip it, another thing that this is gonna be insane. Another thing that this card does is it allows you to give a creature that doesn't have haste. If you blight onto
Mm-hmm.
a creature that needs to attack,
Mm-hmm.
you can just, like, for example, the champion of the weird,
Mm-hmm.
I believe the name. You put a blight counter on the original, you get a
Mm-hmm.
tapped and attacking 5/5.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get so much damage so fast. And then yes, it dies at the end step, but you know what happens in the second main? You pay 3 life, put three minus two counters on it, and kill your opponent's board.
Yeah.
Like I think that this plus Champion of the Weird, this plus, as you said, Taster of the Wares,
Mm-hmm.
like there's so many different cool ways that we can spin this. And another really cool thing that you could do is you could put this on the Curse Tosser. You could
Mm-hmm.
kill the Curse Tosser, blow up a creature, attack, and then at the end step, the Curse Tosser dies, and
Mm-hmm.
then you blow up another creature.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you get to attack with this thing, you've probably just won the game. You either have killed your opponent, or you've just completely just taken them out, and if you without losing much, if anything.
And even if you do lose something, the following turn you flip it back into a Gravedigger, and you
Mm-hmm.
pick it back up again.
Exactly. So I think it's really fragile, which is its only downside. And if this thing was a 0/4, this would be unbeatable.
Yeah, it's really hard to kill, and
Yeah.
I think that I'm really excited to see like how we can put these cards together and try to do things that are, probably not super powerful like on when you look at them uh in a vacuum,
Mm-hmm.
but when you put all of the synergy pieces together, which is honestly traditionally the power of the deck,
Mm-hmm.
is we have a bunch of 1/1s and 2/2s. I love to say that my deck dies to Pyroclasm. I tell people when I'll usually have a very scrappy game one where I very closely win or very narrowly lose, and then my opponent's sideboarding and they're like, "Oh, I have no idea what to do against you," and I'll just casually remark, "Well, do you have Pyroclasm?" Or you just have to kill all the goblins. The easiest way to beat the goblins deck is to just kill all of the goblins. And if you didn't kill all the goblins, I don't know what to say. It's
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's your
like
own
it's
fault,
pretty easy.
really. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to see all these cards. Super excited to see like what we can do with the new tools to brew with, and it's the beauty of playing again a stipulation. You give yourself a challenge, and you say, how many different ways can I put these puzzle pieces together?
Mm-hmm.
And I may not come up with the right way to do it. Someone else might break the deck and make it a tier one
Mm-hmm.
archetype,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna have fun brewing it in a weird and wacky way. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, it doesn't matter who does the most winning with the deck. What matters is who has the most fun. And I hope
Mm-hmm.
that everybody out there who wants to play the deck has fun playing the deck. And I hope that everybody playing, standard has a great time because Lorwyn's back and it's I don't want to say it's my favorite set, but Lorwyn, I didn't get to play during the original, and it was the one set that I always wish I really had been able to play during, and now here we are.
Yes, and here we are. That it was a wonderful look at standard goblins. Even though all we those ones we looked at, I still think there's a few cards worth mentioning. Mostly for commander, honestly, at this point. There's a pretty good goblin in here, a Scuzzback Scrounger. I don't think it's for the standard goblins deck, but it's one in red for a
Yeah.
3/2 goblin warrior. Beginning of your first main phase, you may play one, and if you do, you make a treasure token. 2 mana 3/2 is not what it used to be. Uh, if its first treasure was free and the next were blight, then maybe. But having to be making a 2 mana 2/1 to get 1 mana back is kind of eh. There's a fair amount of blight synergies in the deck, but I think the deck can do enough on its own in standard without that. But I think this goblin is actually very good for any non-green deck in commander to be playing, just because it's 2 mana ramp in commander. It's very strong. If you have another creature in your command zone, you got enough. And then, do you think you guys are gonna be trying any number of Grubs Command? Because I feel like that's too slow.
Yeah, so again, are we talk if we're talking about standard, I could see
Yeah.
this as a sideboard card. I think this
Mm-hmm.
is an amazing sideboard card against the Ouroboros deck. You know, maybe it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
too slow, but like I think that the ability to have the cards that we're not going to change that are not goblins are Burst Lightning and Lightning Strike.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to have burn spells that late game can go to the face and also have early game interaction against Llanowar Elves and
Mm-hmm.
Ouroboros, I think
Mm-hmm.
that can't be undervalued.
Yeah.
I think that Grub's Command is amazing in the situations where you need hard removal. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that Goblins has always struggled with is we have a lot of removal that's based on the number of goblins we have.
Mm-hmm.
And Grub's Command, not only does it give us a shatter, but it also gives us a murder. And if it was just 5 mana Kindred Murder, that'd
Mm-hmm.
be really bad. But because
Mm-hmm.
you can go, oh, I'm going to murder your creature and give my team a Bushwhack, or I'm going to copy my Taster of Wares, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to mill 5 and then try to draw cards. I think the
Mm-hmm.
most common um, two choices on Grub's Command are we're gonna destroy a creature, mill 5, put each goblin card milled into your hand,
Mm-hmm.
and create a token that's a copy of Goblin. Creatures target player controls gets +1/+1, gains haste until end of turn. If
Yeah.
we're able to go, here's another Curse Crafter, here's
Mm-hmm.
another Champion of the Weird,
Mm-hmm.
and then immediately buff the entire team, give them haste, crack in. I think both of those are really good, but
Yeah.
this card screams sideboard to me.
Yeah.
This is like definitely a card that like game one you bring in or game one you bring your big guns. You go, here's my 1/1s, here's my creatures. I'm gonna go as wide as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe play Krenko and then go super wide, kill them.
Yep.
They board in a bunch of fire magics and a bunch of board wipes. Then you board out your Krenkos. You cut some one drops, which is traditionally a thing that we can do in goblins. Is we trim on the one drops because we know that they're bringing in wraths, and we can trim the cards that again we kind of need to curve perfectly into. Krenko's a great example of that,
Mm-hmm.
and we just bring in these mid-range threats. We bring in
Mm-hmm.
like Grub's Command, another copy of Grub from the sideboard. Grub, of course, notably can it says Goblin card, so we can pick up Grub's Command. There's a lot of really cool synergy that we can have, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to say a transformational sideboard, but we can
Mm-hmm.
definitely catch our opponent off guard after we board. And I think the card's decent, but I agree it's slow.
Yeah, I think if we wind up back in a mid-range meta like we did like a year and a half ago when it was all like Ogari mid-range and Demir, uh, this
And
has
bounce.
yeah, this will have a lot of shades of like the Gix's command that we used to play that was kind of like a small thing sweeper, get a thing bigger, or rebuy my thing. It's nice that you have the option to just kind of draw potentially a lot of cards, or at least fill up the graveyard for other effects, while stabilizing yourself by killing their thing. Like if the control player like wraths you, and then you're like, okay, cool. My next turn, I'm gonna kill your one thing that you just replayed after the wrath, and then I'm gonna get my stuff back. Or
Yeah.
like you said, make another taster of wares and stuff. I think this is what the one of these where I think all the other commands have two modes that suck and two modes that are really good, and I think this one
Yeah.
has three modes that are good and one mode that's okay, which is pretty
Yeah.
nice. I think the only command that I think is going to see any play in standard is the elves one, and it's just because it's +3/+3 and untap your team, so you just use all your elves to pay
That
for it and
makes
then
sense.
flip back over. But yeah, Lorwyn is
I also
mhm.
just I was gonna say I just want to make an honorable mention real quick to Gut Splitter Gang. I don't think that this card's going to be like amazing, but I think that's really interesting. It's 4 mana for a 6/6. Beginning of your first main phase, you
Hmm.
may blight 2. If you don't, you lose 3 life. But I want to say that this is, I believe, one of the highest stat lines that we've ever seen in a standard set for a goblin.
Yeah.
4 mana for a 6/6 where you can just you just lava spike yourself every single turn. But like with a Howl Squad heavy, it's a 6/6 that is haste. There's like a billion different ways for you to like use this and abuse this. And I wanted to shout it out because you're gonna see this in limited. It's gonna be a 4 mana 6/6 and it's gonna come down early.
Hmm.
And we might even have some room for it in like niche applications depending on how our build is. If we're trying to kill as many goblins as we can every turn with blight triggers, like You just blight onto a 1/1 that you got from your mobilize. You blight
Yep.
onto, or mobilize doesn't work, but like a sear slicer
Hmm.
the previous turn. I think that like it's a great example of how pushed the goblins in this set are. Usually we're very overcosted. The example that I love to use is Matron. Matron is a 3 mana 1/1 that tutors for a goblin card. And
Hmm.
I like to break it down optimistically. I say, well, that's 1 mana for a 1/1 and 2 mana for Demonic Tutor because the whole deck is goblins. But
Hmm.
this is 4 mana for a 6/6, and the downside is you get options. And I think that
Yeah.
anytime that they give you options is a good thing.
Hmm. 100%. Uh, yeah, I'm just looking through all the different goblins cards in standard right now. This deck feels like it's gonna be real for sure now. I already felt like goblins was gonna be a good deck, and if it wasn't for the Ouroboros being so going wide and tall, I think we would be in a good place. Uh, a lot of the meta is going to get shaped heavily by the removal that's here in Lorwyn. We have Spell Snare coming in to answer all the 2 mana value cards. We have the new Arc Trail, the 2 mana deal 2 to one thing and one to another. We have a 2 mana instant speed deal four. And then we have that new Black Kill spell that's like destroy a two drop or less. So it seems like they're really trying to push this format back into mid range forcibly by basically going, okay, if you want to play a bunch of ones and twos, you can do so, but you got to start paying threes. And I think goblins will be one of the most well positioned decks when they start going back to the threes, with the tasters of wares and the dropkick bombers and the champion of the weirds. And those kind of things, even going to the Aether Drift stuff that's at three and such, like House Squad Heavy and all that. Uh, I think that would be a major strength of the deck as long as you can avoid uh, getting immediately run over by the fast stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, this looks like it's gonna be a really fun set. I'm excited to see how it all plays out in practice. We have an RC in a few months here, a month and a half, not less than yeah, like 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Time's flying. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a point real quick I want to
Oh
make.
yeah.
Meek Attack is a 3 mana
Oh yeah.
enchantment. You can pay 2 mana, put a creature card with total power and toughness 5 or less from your hand on the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Beginning of the next end step, sacrifice that creature. So I really like Meek Attack in Modern
Mm-hmm.
because Snoop and Harbinger are
Mm-hmm.
both under total power and toughness 5. So we
Mm-hmm.
can go play Meek Attack, and then on turn 4, we have the ability to hold up double activation, go to our opponent's end step, activate, put a Snoop into play with haste. If they try to kill it, we can throw the Harbinger into play, or if they're tapped out, we can just throw it into play at the end step, combo in their end step, or we can untap and then we have our entire turn to combo.
Mm-hmm.
It also works really well with Matron. It works really well. Like Harbinger is actually just phenomenal by itself because we can chuck in a Harbinger at the end step, untap, draw our best card, chuck in a Kiki Jiki. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a billion different ways to break this card.
You put
So I'm
Krenko into
super
play.
optimistic about put Krenko into Krenko's a 3/3, so
Oh,
it's
is it
not
three
gonna
three?
work.
Oh, never
But
mind. Okay.
but still, like very like same principle, right? Like you can put any of your synergy pieces into play. This puts most of the cards that we talked about into play. It's gonna be phenomenal, and I'm super excited. And on a non-goblin note, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Moonshadow into Heartless Act is going to be a deck? Because Moonshadow is a 1 mana 7/7 with
Mm-hmm.
Menace that enters with 6 -1/-1 counters.
Mm-hmm.
And then Heartless Act, we just got an avatar, can remove, is it 3 counters?
I think it's
So
three.
you can go like, yeah, so you can turn one Moonshadow, turn two Heartless Act, take 3 counters off it. You have a 4/4 that can attack on turn two. And then if you have another way to either cast another Heartless Act the following turn, you have a full 7/7, or you can just like play a bunch of sack synergies. Even if you're just playing Fabled Passage and Evolving Wilds, that puts permanent cards in your graveyard. And it says from anywhere. So, like, you could be playing, I don't want to say Rumble in Modern, but you could play Malevolent Rumble in Modern. You could play, there's a bunch of different self-mill cards that we're seeing right now see some play in Standard because of the
Mm-hmm.
Sultai mill deck. You
Yep.
could play, like, the Sultai self-mill deck, and Moonshadow could just be your, like, standalone threat.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Moonshadow?
I think Moonshadow is definitely a Sultai self mill card if it's played at all. The issue is going to be that deck is going to be so full of slots. They got a new two
Yeah,
mana creature that mills for four to replace the Surveil 2 creature they've been playing. That's that legendary one. Which in that deck you
yeah,
don't mind that it's legendary because you're okay with it sacking itself to go to the graveyard. Uh, they have the new formidable speaker, uh, that 3 drop that lets you survival the fittest once. Uh, they have what was the other? Yeah, and then they have Moonshadow obviously if they want to try and playing that. So it's that deck is gonna get changed a lot for sure. We'll see where it winds up. It performed pretty poorly at the Spotlight Series this last weekend, but that was
yeah,
mostly due to the Ouroboros decks adapting to the Sultai deck, which had adapted to them. We'll see if it has a
yeah.
chance to switch back and change the script on them, but I doubt it. I think that Ouroboros deck is as good as it's going to get, and now we're gonna see a ton of arc trails and pyroclasms take that thing out. So yeah, fantastic. Well, that was all the Lorwyn stuff. Real quick, I want to circle back to the main topic of the channel, which is of course Commander. Uh, so do you have a? I'm assuming you have to, right? You have a Goblins Commander deck.
Oh yeah, I got tired of playing Krenko. I got tired of
Mm-hmm.
playing Muxus. One of my least favorite things is when I sit down to a game of Commander and my opponents don't have fun. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Krenko is too efficient.
Yeah.
Muxus is very intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I like to play the Wart Boggart Auntie that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Allows you to grave as your upkeep for a goblin, and it's a very innocuous goblin legend. The stipulation I gave myself in that deck, because I'm a huge fan of stipulations, is I said, hey, don't play any tutor like Goblin Matron, Harbinger are the only tutors in the deck, but don't play any like tutors.
Mm-hmm.
Don't play any what are they called? The tiered cards, the
Oh, you
game.
game changers, yeah.
Yeah, don't play any game changers, don't
Mm-hmm.
play any tutors, and don't play any combos.
Mm-hmm.
The only combo that I have is a Snoop Harbinger, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't play a Kiki Jiki.
Yeah.
So I have to just put like a Krenko on top or
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't immediately break the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the deck was born out of the idea of I have all of these modern goblins and legacy goblins that I don't have room to play in my actual decks.
Yep.
So I just like slotted in all these random goblin cards, and it's a lot of fun. It's not like as you can imagine, it's not tuned, it's not meant to win. It's meant to sit there and show people that goblins can be a fun, enjoyable experience. Yes, we play an aggressive deck, but Wart gives me the ability to have more grindy games than most people would expect.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you play a Muxus, when you play a Krenko, the table doesn't groan because I'm not immediately winning the game. I'm
Yep.
flipping some cards. There's a couple uncommon goblins that go into play, lots of commons. And they don't expect bad cards when they see a Muxus. You don't
Mm-hmm.
expect your opponent to not immediately win the game when you see a Goblins deck, but that's my favorite way to play Magic is to take your opponent's expectations and dunk them in the toilet.
Yeah, 100%. So, and then my last question for you here, and then we'll wrap things up uh, with a nice meaty question. If you could just take the card Goblin Ringleader and put it in the command zone, would you play it in Commander?
Yeah,
Yeah?
1000%.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ringleader is sneakily one of the best statted cards in all of Magic. I
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes say that it's better than Ancestral Recall, and people absolutely hate that. But in my mind, I break it down like, okay, so if it's in like, of course, Magical Christmas Land, because
Mm-hmm.
as a Magic player, I live in Magical Christmas
Yeah,
Land.
it's our home.
If if we play a 4 drop and it's a 2/2 with haste, traditionally, our 2/2s with haste cost 2 mana. So that means that I'm paying 2 mana to draw 4 cards.
Mm-hmm.
That's an amazing rate. That's better
Mm-hmm.
than Ancestral. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying 3 mana to draw 4 cards, that's still an amazing rate because that
Mm-hmm.
means that I get 1 mana for a 2/2.
Mm-hmm.
If I pay 3 mana for my 2/2, that
Uh-huh.
means that I have a strictly better ancestral when I draw 4 cards. So
Mm-hmm.
no matter how you break down Goblin Ringleader in, the best situation, it always feels like a ridiculously powerful card. I would say it's better than the Power 9, but I'm a little bit biased.
Fantastic. All right, so it wouldn't be a modern Magic interview if we didn't talk about everyone's favorite hot button issue, Universes Beyond. Uh, So when I first wrote this podcast notes for us, and spoilers for people who didn't know this, this is our second go at this podcast. We first recorded this before I had the nice setup going. So I've gotten some of your answers before, uh, but my question was going to be, how do you feel about Universe Beyond from the perspective of the lack of Goblin representation in media? However, one of the three Universes Beyond sets this year is The Hobbit, one of the few Universes Beyond sets that will have goblins, and it is going to be legal and standard. So I'm going to change up my question a little bit and more ask, uh, in Reality Fracture, do you know anything about? Do you have any idea what this set might be about? Have you heard this at all?
I've heard that it's like basically Time Spiral Part Two, which
Mm-hmm.
means that everything is effed. It's just part of my
Yeah.
French. I think
Mm-hmm.
that Time Spiral originally was the aftermath of the Dominaria saga, where
Yeah.
Urza and Teferi broke everything,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a billion different time rifts, and you see
Yep.
this on cards that have the split second art, where you would walk through a point in a plane where
Mm-hmm.
you would, if you walked a step forward, you would age 1,000 years. And
Yep.
if you were to turn 180 and walk backwards, you would de-age 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you would just like you would not be able to see these time rifts,
Uh-huh.
but
Uh-huh.
everything was horrible and messed up, and it was the result of the planeswalkers being way too powerful and messing with things they shouldn't have messed with.
Yep.
And the only way to fix it was the mending, which was
Mm-hmm.
when all the planeswalkers became less. They were originally like powerful as gods. Then Urza did a bunch of really messed up things. A lot of people had to sacrifice their sparks. And then eventually the mending happened. All the time rifts were sealed. Reality Fracture, I'm sure, is in the same vein. I haven't heard
Mm-hmm.
beyond that.
So we don't know officially what's going on with the story yet. There was a stinger ending to Lorwyn where Liliana was suddenly facing a white mana version of herself, and so there's a lot of speculation about doing like color shift stuff again. Uh, so my question to you is, if there is a goblin character that is currently in one color that you would like to have in a different color, what would it be?
Okay, so this is an easy answer for me because one of my favorite goblins of all time is Squee. Squee
Mm.
is an immortal goblin that really is the embodiment of red.
Mm-hmm.
He's chaotic. He at this point, the last time that we saw him was on Dominaria United, and the art is very Squee-like. He's sitting atop a throne that's covered in bones of his fellow goblins because as an immortal goblin, anybody who wants to fight him is doomed to die, and he can just outlive all of his fellow goblins. I think that the boredom that he is feeling right now would be so perfectly shown if he were to be color shifted into black. You would go from this goblin who is chaotic and focused on freedom and doing whatever he wants to a goblin who now realizes the power that he has been granted by his Phyrexian overlords when he was captured on Volrath and tortured and imprisoned. And I think that it would be really cool to see a character that usually has only been shown in like funny, like comical sense, like a comical scene. I think it would be really interesting to see what does Squee do if he realizes that he could dominate the entire multiverse. Squee is one of the only characters in the entire Magic story that's actually immortal. You literally cannot kill Squee. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Phyrexians were torturing him for hundreds of years, and then eventually they got tired, and then he just killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Like a goblin killing the Phyrexian overlords is kind of like insane.
Mm-hmm.
So he has the knowledge of how to rule as a
Mm-hmm.
king on Dominaria of the goblins. It would be really interesting to see, oh, there's all these omen paths. What if Squee was like the conqueror? What if Squee led the next invasion of the multiverse as an immortal king? I think it would be really, really cool. And then like a very close second would be I want to see them bring back um, not Roderick. There was a goblin that sacrificed his spark in order to bring back um,
Mm.
not Joyra, but there
From
was
are you talking about the one from uh oh, what was that
Mirrodin.
plane? Yes, from Mirrodin. Oh, what was that?
Yeah, there's a he was a tinkerer who was working for Memnarch.
Slow bad.
Um, Slowbad. Yeah, Slowbad became so there's this really cool piece of lore where Jessica was thrice reborn. She was brought back as Flage the first time she died by the Cabal on Dominaria. Then she joined forces with the Mirari and one other sorceress that made her Corona the False God.
Hmm.
Corona then literally planeswalked all over the place as a literal god, questioning different planeswalkers as she met them. And Corona decided to go back to Dominaria and destroy the world, then was stopped and intervened by her brother Kamal, who was able to save her, split her apart, and then she was reborn as Jessica Thrice Reborn. And then Jessica Thrice Reborn chose to sacrifice herself in order to like fix the world. Spark that she sacrificed to fix the world was taken by Memnarch, who then took that spark and was going to put it in himself to make him the immortal god planeswalker. But there was a malfunction, and Slowbad fell in front of him, in front of the machine that was supposed to make him a planeswalker, absorbed the spark, and then
Hmm.
Slowbad had a decision. Did he want to be an immortal planeswalker? Karn offered to train him, and Slowbad said, "Nah, I'd rather save my friends." And he
Hmm.
killed himself in order to bring back all of the people that died. And I think that Slowbad coming back is like a green like creature or like I don't want to say white or blue
I
because I'm
mean,
not a fan of Azorius. But
I
like
mean, maybe if we
I
got
could see him
Slowbad
coming
back
back.
as a mono blue like artifacts card to represent him being trained by Karn, that could be cool.
Yeah.
Just kind of flip him that way.
Yeah, I would love to see that stuff, honestly.
Mm.
What about you? Would you like to see any character color shifted?
I think it's honestly I haven't. So there's a couple of characters that I would like to see them do, but I doubt they would do any of the ones I want because I got into Magic around the time of Streets of New Capenna, and so the Innistrad stuff was really big at the time, even though it was the worst quote unquote Innistrad sets with Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, and so I got in right in that era, and so Innistrad means a lot to me, New Capenna means a lot to me. I think it'd be really cool to see what the leaders for the New Capenna guilds would look like if they were switched. So I don't know if we're doing like actual just like take a character and make it a different color, or if we're doing alternate timeline wibbly wobbly stuff. Because if we're doing that, then New Capenna lore was basically that the planet got ravaged by this great threat, which was the Phyrexians. The angels and demons teamed up to deal with it, and then as soon as the Phyrexians were dead, the demons turned around and went, "All you angels are dying now," and killed all the angels. And so, what
Yeah.
if we saw the New Capenna gangs not taken over by demons, but taken over by angels? And that would be cool, like an angelic Rafine or something. That could be something cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
but
the angels then grind the demons up and make them
hmm
into their cocaine.
exactly, and that that probably be more potent cocaine. We're just not. But anyways, that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. We'll definitely bring you back again around the time of The Hobbit, especially if they have goblins cards, which they will. That might be
Oh,
the time
I
that
would
we
love
have
it.
Goblin King finally get the noble type. Because if there's a place to reprint the card that is just a reference to The Hobbit, it's the Hobbit set. So yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Uh, yeah, you can check out Jack on his own channel. What's your channel, Jack?
Well, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on YouTube. Twitch, not as big, but we're starting to stream there more
Mm-hmm,
often.
mm-hmm,
Goblin Ringleader on all channels.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. It's always fun to play with you in Standard and
Mm-hmm.
Modern, and I look forward to playing you in Locals.
Of course. Have a good day, everybody.